Good morning, Warriors. My name's Kerry Duval. I am the Mental Health Warrior's wife, and today we're having a discussion about our educational system. And I'm so proud to be joined by Kerry Burr, who was absolutely fantastic last night. Well done, Kerry.
Thank you.
And we're also joined by the brilliant Dr. Philip Chan. Welcome back, Philip.
Thank you.
And the amazing Sarah Jane, last but not least. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, how are we all this morning?
No, it's great. Really good. Very excited to be learning from two great panels, Kerry and Sarah. So I'm always learning, and also from yourself as well.
We're gonna have some fun this morning, talking about the education system. Obviously, we're gonna start with I'm gonna pick on you, Philip, because you're the teacher here. Yeah. Tell us, why is education important to kids?
Well, I think it lays the foundation, for the rest of their life, because obviously is having acquired the skills, to cope with the rest of their life, and also in the modern society, you need a job, or if you have a job, you know how to create a business to actually have a living. And also the other thing is, apart from earning money, which seems to be the focus, but the other thing is actually about relationship, because unless you actually know how to get on with people and relationship, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It actually, make no difference to some people, because some of the richest people are the most miserable people in the whole world. So it's a balance between earning money, knowing how to get on with people, and also how to fit into society. At the same time, how do you stand up unique? And there's a time and place to fit in. There's also a time and place when you say, "This is who I am." I'm a unique person as well.
Yeah. Sarah Jane, why do you think education is important?
Well, obviously we have to learn to read and write. But I mean, education. What education do you mean? The school education?
Any sort of education.
Exactly. Because everyone needs to learn. Everyone's always learning. If you're not learning.
And Kerry, same question to you. Why do you think it's important for us to learn?
Well, I believe that we're learning all the time. From everything around us, we can't help but learn all the time. Whether we actually take anything from those lessons or not is another story. But certainly, I would. I certainly agree with what Philip's just said. Especially with children, it's essential that those foundations are laid for their lives ahead, because it's important to know the difference between right and wrong. It's important to know the difference between good and bad. And equally, as Sarah Jane has just said, it's important to be able to read and write so that we can understand a lot more of what we're seeing and what we're communicating. But as I say, I think we're constantly learning all the time.
Yeah. So one thing that I know Adam normally would ask, but obviously Adam's on a week off now. Do you think that mental health should be taught on its own in schools? We're going to start with you, Kerry.
That's good question. Yes, I do, but everybody's going to have their own opinion on this. Everybody's going to have their own beliefs on this, and all I can do is put forward my opinion, my belief. It is important. We're taught physical education when we're at school, so why aren't we taught about mental health? We're taught how to look after our bodies physically through the physical education. We're taught later on, certainly in secondary schools, biology, chemistry, physics, anything that's related to the physical body. But it doesn't teach us how to look after this. And if we're not looking after this, we can't possibly look after the rest of this.
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe that it should be taught in schools, but I think that it has to be dealt with in such a way that each age group is going to resonate with it, if that makes sense. And again, I think it's very much a case of also being taught what's the difference between right and wrong, being taught how to be kind to people as well as being kind to ourselves, and not always doing what's expected of us. Teaching us that actually we are individuals in our own right, and that we have all the ability, all the capabilities, everything that we need to succeed. And if we're told that we have those and we believe those things, then a lot of the mental health issues that children are experiencing, even adults are experiencing to a degree, can be much easily dealt with, I think. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And so, Jane, same question to you. Do you think mental health should be taught more in schools?
Yeah, definitely. I do now, but I think I'm more concerned with why are children suffering with their mental health at such a young age. No, why? Let's not. If we find why, then we can help them with their mental health. But we're not going to find out why they're suffering. How are we going to help them?
Yeah. And what about you, Philip?
Actually, the answer is no. But not in the way that you think I meant. You see, there's so much of the education is put into compartments, and it's not integrated. It's like in one of my subject, maths are taught. Here's a subject, but what's the how do this used in practical? So I don't believe in having a mental health lessons per se, but actually, you have targeted awareness lessons, and then it should be integrated in all lessons, so it's a more natural. And the thing about children learn by examples, and sometimes if you just label things, why don't you do it naturally? It's like when children are playing, they actually learn so much, through playing, and they don't say, well, now we're catching a ball, but you just catch a ball. Sometimes we label things too much. So it's going back to the fundamental system of teacher training. I mean, I do a lot of teacher training, mentoring, and for years I complained the training of teachers is inadequate. I look at the courses that I have been put through, and I first realized, within the first 3 years of my teaching, that it does not equip me as a teacher. So I had to go outside the business to actually acquire the skills. And it's coming back to the people who are training the teachers. First of all, most of the lecturers, with due respect, they're very clever people, but a lot of them have not been in the classroom for 20, 30, 40 years. And one size do not fit all. And since the change in the education in Mrs. Thatcher, Sir Keith Joseph, when he actually implemented the national curriculum, the idea was very good. However, it should have taken 10 years to phase in the training, and that was done, I think, in about 3 years.
Yeah.
And also at that time, in order to get the vote, Maggie Thatcher actually let the teachers retire 10 years early than they can on full benefit. And that one decision, have taken away some of the most experienced teachers in the country in one simple act. Because obviously, if someone can retire 10 years early on full benefit, you say, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
By the time they actually realized the mistake, they trained up to 5 years. So in a very short period of time, you took out the top 2 layers of your most experience in the teaching, and all of a sudden, people have to move up to fill the gap. But the trouble is, you can't shortcut time for experience. So in terms of the education system, it's this when a system has actually got inherited faults in it, then all you do is putting plasters on to try to stem the problem. The other thing about mental health, you're expecting teachers to teach it, but unless they've been trained properly, you know, therefore it's just the blind leading blind. It's almost like when sex education was first came in, it was just rush in. There wasn't very much training done, and together with all the different pressure, it was not done properly. So therefore, everything looks great on paper, but the reality is coming back to the system and the trainer teachers from that standpoint. And otherwise, without that first step done properly, the rest will just fall apart. Actually, you could try and justify things. You know, if you look at the stress that was imposed since national curriculum, there has been more stress related, than previously.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? There's some fantastic answers. Obviously, mental health starts. The majority of the things that we've been learning on the courses that me and Adam have just done, understanding children's and young people's mental health, the majority of it is based around, teenagers and mental health. Obviously, that's the sort of age that we think it should be taught in schools. What would you think? Go on, Philip, we'll start with you.
Well, you see, I think mental health starts from home, and it's the leadership of the parents. And we talk about children. Children will just accept anything that we tell them because from 0 to 3, they don't actually rationalize it. So actually, between 0 to 7, they just accept everything as the truth. So therefore, it's coming back. We're talking about uh, mental health for children, but you need to education the adults first. And it covers very simple things. Husband and wife. The way they behave to each other. The normal courtesy, simple thank you, hugs between family. You know, very simplistic things. Research shows over 20 years ago, men in the family, in a relationship with a husband, the men only talk to their children for no more than 30 seconds a day, if that at all.
Yeah.
The fact that you could be in the same house, but if you actually don't talk to your children, that means nothing. You know, so the quality of talking, and not I don't mean saying you should do this, you should do that, but asking children questions and explain to them why you do things. And the younger you do that, the better. And also, if they do things wrong, don't tell them off, but just learn to ask, say, okay, darling, you know, that wasn't very helpful. And we've got to learn how to speak to our children in a way that doesn't deflate their ego, their self image. And also, there's a lot of condition that's happening on television. When should I show name the program? Yes, I should. So I'm going to get slapped for this. Uh, EastEnders. I know a little bit of the background of EastEnders from the production side. When it first came on, the rating was really, really poor. So they brought in a psychologist. Actually, this is someone I know. I'm not going to name him. He's a mathematician and also a psychologist, PhD psychologist. And he looked at the program and he actually do a couple of things, and also the rating went up. So that is from the audience getting from the point, but from the storyline, it actually created a lot of problems. That's why sometimes you've got to do a program and say, if you have any issue with blah 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 blah, phone this, you know, phone this in. Well,
But
actually, that's
is that
quite
not
dangerous.
is that not media manipulating society?
Absolutely, Sarah Jane. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it's such a powerful thing. And we look at things like Love Island. and so they become a role model. And for me, sometimes some of the television program is touching very dangerous field. It is not based on solid ground. But when kids look at that over and over again, that is almost a kind of brainwashing, and that this is the model, this is the way we should behave. No, it's not. You know, there's so much shouting that instead of learning to talk to each other. Some of the reality is the more outrageous you can be, the better. Or you shout at each other instead of talk to each other. So that the media has a very important, but it's coming down to the home. It's like we have an immune system that can deal with things. So therefore the home teaching parents or making not so much teachers that make people awareness. Maybe the way we have been taught by our parents may not be correct. We now need to learn, how to ask questions, how to spend time with our children, and if
I got a
parents.
terrible signal.
Mm.
Yeah. So if parents can actually learn to spend more time talking to children, probably I believe a lot of mental issues that we see today will significantly decrease.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to move on to obviously.
So you're blaming parents.
No, I'm not blaming parents because we have taught by our parents and we just accept the way we've been taught by parents is the right thing to do. So I think it's coming back to awareness. So it's not about blame. I mean, how do you know what you don't know? And the thing is, until someone point out to you, you know. So it's not a question of blame. It's actually changing our awareness. And then the for me as a teacher for over 45 years, and I question a lot of things the way yeah I have been trained to teach as a teacher, and I discovered to my class, I said that's not right. So I had to went outside the system to learn how people actually learn, because most teachers plan their lessons about 70 times sequentially, but actually that's and over 70% of our children do not learn sequentially. So therefore, you're applying a system that the way it's not the way how the brain is engaged. And that's why when I've gone to schools of people that's in trouble, when I'm given a free hand, I can actually reteach a 2-year GCSE course in 7 weeks. And normally I teach anything from 2 to 5 classes at the same time. So anything from 70 to 130 kids at a time. Because all I simply do is engage how the brain learns. But most teachers are not taught that. In the same way as parents, we have never had lessons on how to raise a family properly. We have never learned how to actually talk to our children. So unless parents go out of their way to learn about these things, we just do the things the same old way. So it's not a question of blame. It's actually saying, you know, let's look at what happened in our household. What is working, what's not. If it's not working, how can I actually learn about certain things to actually, to be a better parent?
I'm going to jump in here because I don't want you debating the whole podcast. We'll lose viewers. No? We're going to move it on to how the media influences education, particularly around our children and young people. And we're going to start with you, Sarah Jane.
How the media influences education?
Yeah.
As in
Because obviously
school
in the
education?
media, it can affect how children and young people view the world and how they learn things.
Well, it's all it's there for manipulation, isn't it? The media only want you to know what they want you to know, and if you're not watching anything else, that's all you're going to know. So they're teaching you what they want you to know, and not happy when you learn outside the box.
Yeah, because obviously there's a big thing at the moment where the media tells you half the story, but then to find the rest of the story out, you have to sort of go digging for yourself. We've got to be careful in that sort of thing, because obviously that can stem out to lots of different things. We've got to be careful around that. Go on, Kerry, same question to you. How does the media influence our children and young people and their education?
I think it influences all of us to a degree. It's long gone are the days where the media are printing and delivering completely unbiased reporting. That went by decades ago. The newspapers have mainly discovered over the last few decades that bad news sells, gossip sells,
Yeah.
and it's kind of they've become such huge organisations that are owned by huge organisations, and they're kind of dictated to really or they're told, that you've got to do something to bring the sales in, literally.
Yeah.
And it's all about readership. So I think in that respect, it's down to the individual to sort of decide, what to look at censorship, really. I think for young children especially. I mean, I was really so interested listening to Philip when he was talking about, as in from birth to 3 years old, we are essentially sponges. We're just taking everything in, and much can be said for up to sort of 7, 8 years old as well. We've not yet got to the point of actually questioning stuff. And I know we've learned that word why, why. But it's not until then that we start sort of really paying attention to what's going on outside and around us, outside of the home environment. And of course, that then is where we're more likely to see and be aware of anything in the media. So, and I also agree, it does start at home. The responsibility does start at home, and it's definitely absolutely not a case of putting blame on our parents. Our parents are responsible for us, for our safety, for our upbringing, just as their parents were responsible for their upbringing and safety, just as their parents were. So it's all passed down. A lot of it's to do with society, a lot of it's to do with own personal beliefs and values. So, nobody can turn around and say, well, that parent's doing it wrong. You just can't do that. You could say that the media's doing it wrong, potentially, but their set of values for what's important to them is to get people to read and to listen and to watch. Much like with the soaps, some of the soaps, there's got to be there's got to be a tragic storyline every so often. There's got to be what's considered gossip going on in that soap opera's community. It's got to be something that's going to keep people on the edge of their seats and want to come back for the following episode of it, and to follow that storyline through, because we love stories.
Yeah.
So why not change the stories? Why not make them more uplifting, more understanding, more compassionate? Yeah. On the education side of things, it's not just about how they're educated in schools. It's about how they're educated in the much wider environment as well. So yeah, it's got to be. We've got to educate those that are in a position to educate, essentially, pass that down to the young ones.
Yeah. Obviously, while we're on the subject of children, young people, I'm going to move it along to education around children with special needs, such as autism, ADHD. I'm going to pick on them too because that's what Lucas has got. But yeah, do you think there should be more education with children about other children that possibly are very different? Obviously, everybody's unique, everybody's different anyway. But then certain children do have those extra needs. I'm going to start with you, Kerry.
That's a really good question, actually, because I've also got a very good friend whose son he's 10 years old now. He's on the autism spectrum, and he's just starting to find a lot of things very difficult at school, and it's kind of coming out at home. I've kind of got mixed thoughts and beliefs about education as far as young children who are considered to be neurodiverse are concerned. That's a label, isn't it? Don't like labels, but you know, as an easy way of describing certain people, it's on the one hand, I think it all depends on the severity of the individual's condition, as to whether or not they attend mainstream school or whether they attend a school that is specifically designed to educate people with that condition.
Yeah.
Whilst those particular schools are great, I don't know whether it necessarily helps them when it comes to integrating into society as a whole, where you're going to meet all kinds of different people from different backgrounds and who have different challenges. You know, we all have a challenge from time to time.
Yeah.
So I think education, as far as getting on with or getting along with other people is concerned, is important. But I think it's also important to teach our young people that they're not going to get on with everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that if we don't get on with that person, that we have to constantly be, not particularly nice towards that person. Just be tolerant, accept that this person is different to you, and they will behave differently. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sarah, what about you?
I forgot the question.
That's all right. Children with special needs and how others are taught to have awareness of potential difficulties that other children may have. Should it be taught?
No, not really. I think children should just be taught to accept people who's who they are, whether their differences and everything. You know, children are children. You're never going to change that. You know, they're growing, they're learning themselves. These people with differences everyone's got differences. So, but children will be children, won't they?
Yeah. See, from a personally, I think children should be taught about there could be other children around who have autism, have ADHD, who are deaf, who may be blind, that may be in a wheelchair, for example. And even though they've got that disability, they're just people. And obviously to tolerate the fact that, yes, there's a difference, but to tolerate each other. So I think it should be.
But that comes back to what they learn in the home as well.
Yeah.
You know,
obviously because today is about the education systems. Obviously, it is main focus is obviously going to be schools. Yeah, all right. Education is at home as well, but it's going to be more at schools.
No, I don't mean that. I mean that's what the children hear at home. Their parents talking about them sort of things. So then the children take on their views, they take on their morals, and then unless they see different for themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It just reminds me of my own upbringing and my parents, whilst not perfect, because none of us are, I was always taught that no matter whether a person was in a wheelchair, had a walking stick, had crutches, you know, looked a little bit different to other people, had hearing aids, wore glasses. It didn't matter. They are people. They are individuals in their own right. And, you know, it was wrong to think differently of them. You know, it was wrong to say anything, you know, remotely discriminatory, as we would refer to it now. Because, you know, when I was growing up back in the 1970s, there was very little about discrimination, you know. So, but then again, having said that, when I was at school, right the way through my school years, there were young people there who were considered troublemakers, you know. And it's not until much later on in life where they've, you know, they've had the opportunity to go and speak to people that are educated in that area, they're specialists in that area, and they've been told that actually they have a particular condition that causes them to behave the way that they do. So it was nothing about being just a badly behaved child.
If they were in the right environment.
Talk about badly behaved children. Going after me charger wire. Don't they?
If they're in the right environment, they wouldn't be that troublemaker.
No, but what I'm saying is, you know, bear in mind, we're going back quite a few decades. So I'm talking about my time at school.
Yeah.
But then you see schools back then didn't recognise autism, ADHD, bipolar, anything like that. They just considered that child was misbehaving, and therefore they were naughty, they were disruptive, and they were punished. And it, as I say, it wasn't until later in life. I know this because I've spoken to a few that were considered that. It's not until they've become adults and their behaviour has become a problem. Because you know, in the work environment, so they've gone and spoken to specialists, experts, and they've been told, actually, you have this particular condition, and that's why you behave the way that you do. And all of a sudden, the light bulbs have come on for them, and now they know what they're dealing with. They've educated themselves, and they're able to educate others around them. So, you know, but that was like from decades ago. As I say, you know, it's these days. It's not so much. I don't think that it's seen quite so much as just a naughty child. But more the fact that, you know, why is this young person behaving the way that they are? What's causing this? And it's getting to the root cause of that problem. And yeah, sometimes it's an excuse for the child to play up. I get that. But there's always an underlying reason, an underlying cause as to why people behave the way that they do. Any of us.
Yeah.
You know.
Go on, Phil.
Well, it's going back to the root cause. We're not tackling root causes. So therefore, it doesn't matter how much money you pump in. You know, if you don't get down to the root cause, you will never solve the problem. And it's coming back. The word tolerance is very, very important. Awareness, and it's coming back to this one size fit all of the I said the new education system. What I mean talking about the introduction to the national curriculum, it does not. For instance, if someone's a left-handed person and you gave that person a right-handed tool, that person will do their best, but they will not be working very efficiently, and they will struggle. And that struggle is not to do with ability; it's sometimes we give them the wrong tool. You know, so therefore the education is this is the only way you will learn. No, it's not, because it doesn't account for the some people are auditory, some are visual or kinesthetic. If we go back to advertising, they employ the best technique to engage us. You know, from a technical point of view, they engage our visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And the other thing is they know how to engage our emotions. If you look at gambling, it's always seems to be fun, but they don't tell about the debt the debt. Or they look at beer commercials. You know, everyone's always happy. They don't talk. So the beer gut, if you've been drinking a lot, so they tap from the commercial point of view, they tap into, actually from the technical point of view, how to engage us. But teachers are not taught how to engage our emotions in the right way. You know, that we learn differently, because someone who's a visual obviously like to look at things, like to read things. Someone who's obviously auditory like to listen to things first before they do things, and also someone who's kinesthetic just like to engage in doing practical. But that's
But
not taught at all.
how can we expect teachers to teach a class, but also teach in different ways to other children that learn in different ways? That the education needs a big overhaul. You're
Absolutely,
either academic or you're not. That doesn't
absolutely.
mean you have to be illiterate.
Yeah, it's just when
You get
I was
to,
absolutely so. When I was a teacher trainer, I also had to follow the official line, but I also would do extra sessions with my trainee teachers because I just know that the system of teacher training is so inadequate, and most teachers actually when they first started they're petrified of the students, and they don't know how to speak to class. Well, first of all, if you're a teacher, you're standing in class, you need to talk how to engage the thing, So I do extra training the people under my care. That's the training system is totally inadequate. They do not
Yeah.
teach us how to engage with the pupils to aware that in the first 1 to 5 minutes of teaching, you've got to engage all three learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic,
but
and you don't know how.
many teachers don't want to change.
Well, it's an easy comfort zone. If a university lecture, I mean, one of my university lectures back at Oxford, we discovered one lecture. All he done is actually taking an actual book and dissect it into a handwritten each lecture, by hand. But it's actually we discovered, he actually took it from the book. And when we discovered that, we all bought that book and said, well, don't worry about taking notes because you just literally take it from this book. So it's a lazy comfort zone. So hopefully most teachers are not lazy, but because they're taught in a certain way and they're told this is the way you will teach. And in fact, I left teaching and came back. And then when I came back, actually, two things I noticed straight away. One is the noise level, and the second is the amount of squaring that's going on. Yeah, and also the third thing I noticed is the stress factor on teachers because if you're not trained it's like if you're a nurse or a doctor, you're not trained in a particular way, and so there's an accident, you will panic because But also, people who are trained in the medical can know how to handle emergency. Yes, they're panicking, but they do it with a calmness. How to actually solve that problem. Teachers are not trained in that. So they, they're firefighting all the time. And also the fact that 80% of the behavior problem in their class is because teachers are not trained how to engage the pupils in a way to identify the uniqueness. I teach a lot of techniques to my trained teachers that's totally outside the system.
Hmm.
Because it's how we engage. Now, there's four of us here. We learn differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
going to
not.
jump in there, Phil.
Mhm.
This cat's being a very nuisance this morning. I've noticed that Kerry's having a bit of a bother with her dogs. So I'm going to cut it here and go sort my cat out. I think I'm going to chuck her out for 10 minutes. Yeah?
Okay.
So thank you all for joining us. We're going to have to come back and have another discussion on education and special needs. I think it's going to be needed, especially with you two. So that's all from me right now, but I'm back at 1 o'clock with Rebecca Adams. Please join me then. Thanks again for all of you for joining us, and see you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.